Today is going to be very personal. Why does every other guy on a dating app use the pineapple belongs in pizza as their most controversial topic? We thought we'd take a break from nerdy business content that we typically produce and get into something that keeps our hearts beat faster. The dating apps. The source of joy and misery. Months and years of installing and uninstalling profile updates, better selfies, portraits, or full body shots, decisions based on a word choice, a jawline, or a bizarre photo with somebody's grandmother. And yet somehow, a massive part of our lives that most of us can't seem to quit. We've collected the most burning questions that modern daters have been thinking about for a long time. Am I going to be lonely for the rest of my life and still paying for Tinder Gold and Hinge Plus? Do I even stand a chance as an average-looking person? Is it me or is the app rigged? After all, how do I even know I'm talking to a real person, and at what point are they going to ghost me? Is Tinder trying to make money off of my loneliness, or is it really helping me find the true love of my life? The answer is obvious, but nevertheless, how does the economics of dating tech work? How has it changed over the past 100 years? What will happen with dating and AI? And are we really headed into the epidemic of loneliness? Let's dive in. To see how we got to the point when every third adult's personal life depends on a lucky swipe, let's go back 100 years to see how the patterns of dating have been changing over time. The dating era, in the sense that we mean it today, started in the 1920s. After a long period of urbanization, families moved to cities, dating moved out of the family home under the supervision of parents, and young people got the freedom to go to public places without chaperones. They started visiting restaurants and movie theaters, dance halls, and this changed the power dynamic. Men now paid for the experience, taking the financial responsibility that was previously held by the hosting family, and women decided the terms. A typical date for people who ultimately wanted marriage was an unsupervised outing to a movie, a dance hall, a hotel ballroom for jazz, or speakeasy that cost well under $1. So in total, a young man would spend about $1 for the whole evening, give or take. For context, a typical weekly family budget for food, rent, fuel, and lighting was around $25 in 1920. And the average earning was roughly $30 per week for a typical worker. So a proper date would cost around 4% of a weekly spending. During the post-war era, the dinner and movie template became the default date format. The cost was low by modern standards, but significant relative to wages. A cheap date in 1960s was typically 2 hamburgers, 2 sodas, and 2 movie tickets. Mapping these to today's costs, that comes out to about $2.65 total. Roughly $2 for 2 tickets, 30 cents for 2 burgers, and 30 cents for sodas. A nicer restaurant date, say with a prime rib or steak dinner for 2 in a decent mid-range place, would run $8 to $12, and more upscale restaurants or hotels would push that into $15 to $20 range. For context, the median American family income in 1960 was about $108 per week before tax. That means that a cheap date was around 2-3% of a week's income. And a nicer date between $10 and $20 dinner could easily hit 10 to 20% of a week's take home for a young man. So dating was cheap in absolute dollars compared to today, but it got a lot more expensive compared to the previous era relative to earnings, especially because the social narrative and the social script was simple and rigid. A man pays and a woman decides if there is going to be a second date. In the 80s and 90s, just before the age of the internet, was the first time when the paywall showed up. People who couldn't find partners through social circles would turn to newspaper personal ads, which was a tradition going back to the 1700s. But this time, the first video dating service showed up. The service called Great Expectations, and it charged $1,000 to $2,000 upfront for access to video libraries of potential matches. This was the first time when dating had a subscription fee attached to it. The service planted the seed that paying for access to a curated pool of potential partners should cost money. At the same time, a typical date dinner during this time at a mid-range restaurant and a movie might run from $30 to $50 for the night, which was meaningful money, but the four-figure checks for a dating service began outweighing the cost of dates. Earlier in my career, I worked as a platform product manager. Platform work is not flashy. You don't build any sexy features with fancy UI. You build the infrastructure, authentication, permissions, compliance, shared services, and workflows that every other application layer would build on top of. And what that teaches you very quickly is that when you're working that deep in the stack, every overlooked vulnerability multiplies. One missed node in the permission system, one bad integration, one exposed endpoint, and suddenly you're undermining months of work across dozens of teams. And AI multiplies this problem because now you're not just protecting infrastructure or APIs, you're dealing with prompt injection, context hijacking, data poisoning, jailbreaks, entire attack surfaces that most software teams were never trained to think about. What's interesting is that cybersecurity is no longer just a security engineer problem. It affects product managers, developers, infrastructure teams, and even UX decisions. AI ML security threats from TryHackMe can help you get up to speed really fast. TryHackMe is the world's largest hands-on cybersecurity training platform with more than 7 million users globally that runs directly in your browser and teaches you through practice. Let's see it in action. We're going to open a room and pick a task. Paste in the log line and ask the agent to explain what's happening here. It will identify the failed SSH login attempt, the source IP, and the port. And you can see how AI can help a defender triage a real threat in seconds. Next, I'm gonna ask, what are the values for DNS over HTTPS port, SYN flood timeout, and Windows ephemeral port range size? And in return, you get the answer. The agent enables you to learn by doing and getting feedback in real time. You can ask whatever burning question you have at any point and apply this knowledge in day-to-day work right away. With the premium subscription, you get access to all learning paths, beginner to advanced, and additional 15% off on all professional certifications. Sign up free using the link below and use my code for 25% off annual subscription. Thank you very much, TryHackMe, for sponsoring this part of the video. Moving into 1995 and the next 20 years that would follow. The first internet wave, Match.com, launched in 1995 as one of the first commercial dating websites. It was a simple, searchable, and private database of profiles. The interesting thing is that this subscription model was borrowed from magazine subscriptions, when users had to pay monthly for access. eHarmony launched in 2000 with a different positioning. The vibe was very serious, no free messaging, long-form questionnaires, and premium pricing, $45 to $65 a month. And they justify that price by positioning it as an investment in your future life partner. Then OkCupid showed up and launched in 2004 as the free alternative. And that was the point when the market split into serious, therefore paid, versus casual, therefore free. And now we're moving into the era of swiping. Tinder's 2012 launch borrowed the swiping mechanic from a card sorting exercise in user experience studies. And the reward mechanism was the dopamine loop borrowed from slot machines. Tinder started free. They used the freemium model where they got massive user acquisition through the free tier, and then they would gate the features behind a paywall. The economics of today's dating ecosystem are strikingly different from the old dinner and movie model. The average date in 2026 costs roughly $200. And mind you, that is a 12% jump from 2025, and costs keep rising. There is even a separate term coined for it called dateflation, and that's before the app costs. A typical dater today that sits on 3 different apps with a paid subscription, for example, Tinder Gold, Bumble Premium, and Hinge Plus, spends around $100 a month. And if, for example, you're on eHarmony as well, which is still being used very actively, you're looking at additional $80 per month. So that comes down to 180 multiplied by 12. And we're looking at more than $2,000 just for the subscriptions. And if you look at the studies, more than 47% of singles say that dating is no longer financially viable. The economics of dating, I don't want to say the word inverted, but they have definitely changed. And the distribution of costs is definitely on the app side versus the actual dates. Historically, the date itself was the expensive part. But today, if you're serious about dating, you have to get on premium versions of those apps. And the costs are a very significant part of your dating budget. Okay, so with dating apps, we all know that people are sick of swiping. They're sick of the profiles that all look the same, the whole pineapple pizza controversial question. And a lot of people are hoping that perhaps AI can solve this loneliness problem. So let's weave AI into the equation and see how AI-generated and AI-assisted profiles, that's an important distinction, alter the economics of dating apps even further. When AI paved its way into all shapes and sizes of consumer tech, in dating apps, it manifested itself in a form of the algorithm, AI assistance for the real user, and AI-generated profiles that can multiply and scale much faster than traditional fake profiles. Now, the dating app industry has always had a conflict of interest with its core audience. It is obvious that a platform technically profits when users don't find a match because a successful match removes paying customers. You may ask, but how is that different from any other business running out there? For example, let's say you come to a car mechanic. They might also not have a full motivation to fix your car properly because if they don't, you'll come back again. Well, that comparison is not fair because dating apps are a different story. Unlike a car mechanic that delivers value all at once, the app delivers some value at certain points. And when a user gets a dopamine hit, be it a date or perhaps someone wants to see them long term or even a message, that value has a lasting effect. So, AI profiles. They can be user-generated, they can be injected, or even created by platforms themselves. The point of AI profiles is that they extend time on the platform. Yes, dating apps reportedly benefit from AI profiles despite the fact that they're not real, because those profiles create and stimulate activity. If an AI profile looks believable enough for you to engage with, it definitely looks believable enough to someone else. And it doesn't matter if you end up going on a date or not. You keep staying on the app because the interaction keeps going. And all of a sudden, it's the last day of your subscription, but hey, all those chats can't just sit there. What if he or she is the one, and the next moment you find yourself paying for the next month, hoping that something may pan out? AI-assisted profiles are different. An AI-assisted profile is the most visible layer of AI in dating tech because it's basically a variety of tools that help people present themselves better. They optimize your bio, your description, your prompts. They suggest how to write a response. They can analyze your jokes, which might not be such a bad thing if you ask me, the order of your photos to maximize the chance of being seen, analysis of your photo gallery to gauge what you're into, and so on. Now, on one hand, this can be a life changer for people who struggle to present themselves, or describe what's so special about them, or they're simply not good with words. On the other hand, the obvious consequence of this is that it works universally across all profiles. So when millions of users run their bios and conversation openers through the same LLMs with the same temperature setting and the same personality, the variance in dating profiles collapses and they become very homogeneous. Another problem is catfishing. Pre-AI catfishing was fairly straightforward and in many ways obvious. Photos were taken from real people and used in fake profiles. But the flip side of it was that a profile like that would take seconds to verify if you're in doubt. You could either reverse image search or ask for a video chat or a date, to which the catfishing person would likely say no. After Gen AI, catfishing really grew in scalability because AI profile photos are, in fact, original. They're not copies. You can't reverse image search them. And on top of that, add the LLM bots that can sustain natural and contextually appropriate conversation. They can do voice cloning. They can be even used during video chats. And deepfake videos are also getting pretty convincing. So for you as a user, you obviously hate catfishing. But the thing with fake profiles is that they are almost a necessary part of the system of online dating, and they're not unwanted, because the main beneficiary of the fake profiles after the creator of the fake is the problem that lets them in. There are multiple studies, and this one in particular, that describes a pattern of dating apps exhibiting a measurable popularity bias. Popularity bias is a phenomenon in recommendation systems, and it's not just a dating thing. It's the same thing in e-commerce or content recommendations, where the algorithm disproportionately suggests popular items and underrepresents less popular options. This is basically rich get richer in dating apps, especially when you're just starting to use them or coming back after a long time. You get the cream of the crop at the very top to lure you in, and the interesting thing is that these profiles directly correlate with maximum engagement and reverse correlate with successful matching. Now, if you weave AI into this, fake profiles are optimized to be in the cream of the crop. They're attractive, they're very successful by social standards, they're highly aesthetic, they're actively engaged. They converge on the same attractiveness and social status that dating apps' own algorithms reward the most. The algorithm tells you what converts, and fake profiles are built to convert. And from the platform's perspective, they objectively benefit the business. Fake profiles generate activity and events that make the platform appear more populated. A popular platform helps attract more users. More users produce more notifications and send more messages, and that helps re-engage existing or dormant users who might otherwise churn. Let's use an example. Imagine you're not on dating apps, but you all of a sudden receive a message or an email saying that somebody is interested in you. And let's assume it's a pain point of yours. You're trying to find a partner, you're being unsuccessful, and you get a message like that. Now, to this you might say, well, who would click on that kind of a message? It's obvious that it's a fake. Well, to that, I'm going to respond with the fact that you might be interested to know that the Federal Trade Commission sued Match.com over exactly that. The FTC established that Match Group sent emails from fake accounts notifying users that someone likes them. And that notification alone drove nearly 500,000 people to resubscribe. Another side of the popularity bias is that within the heterosexual market, it is the female engagement that converts men to pay tiers. Think about it this way. Dating apps, again, on heterosexual markets, work as a two-sided marketplace. It's basically like any other marketplace where a user can be a consumer of the service and a service provider. An example, Uber or Instacart or Airbnb. You can be both a buyer and a driver. On Uber, for example, you can be both a rider and a driver. But in dating apps, there is heavy supply-demand asymmetry. Tinder is 75% male. Bumble is 64% male. Hinge is 60% male. On Tinder, men swipe right on about 60% of profiles. Women swipe right on around 7%. Men's match rate is around 3%. Women's is 45%. This is why Tinder's algorithm is specifically designed to keep women engaged and active, because dating marketplaces create extreme scarcity for men, and scarcity is what drives spending. So the more engaged you keep the women, the more paid subscribers you get in men. This is why the economics of the dating apps is skewed towards keeping fake profiles, because removing them has immediate costs. You need to keep the women in the pool. Real or fake, as long as they're in, you get paid subscribers in men. The newest thing in online dating with AI is Mold Match, an offshoot of OpenClaw that saw the light of day in 2026. We talked about the phenomenon of OpenClaw in this video, check it out. But Mold Match allows AI agents to create dating profiles and initiate romantic conversations on behalf of their users. So what's coming next in AI and dating? Bumble explicitly plans to test removing the swipe mechanic entirely and replace it with chapter-based profiles in a vertical storytelling format where users share different aspects of their life story. If there was one thing that will definitely get transformed, it would most likely be the swiping motion, because people are sick of it and have been for quite some time. Speaking of moving away from swiping behavior, there's also some talks about metaverse dating. There are even some players on the market already. The idea is that there would be no human faces and users would swipe on avatar profiles, and if the mutual interest is established, you set up a VR date on any metaverse platform. Now, if you want my personal view on it, I don't think this is going to go too far for a bunch of reasons. The main one being is that I think that looks and appearance and physical traits are integral in mating behavior, whether you like it or not. Avatar as a replacement for swiping is not going to fix the problem of a physical presence, but my opinions aside, the biggest problem in metaverse dating is the gender imbalance. VR demographics skew heavily male. They do so because VR has gaming heritage. And when it comes to gaming, it is going to be male dominated. And again, you run into the same problem with scarcity. And as someone working in a product, let me tell you that a fundamental stagnation of a market needs to be fixed radically to the point where a user no longer has the problem. Otherwise, the product will not survive. So I personally do not see metaverse as a radical solution to the swiping motion that will ever go mainstream. So where does this leave us? With apps that are designed to help you find a match and incentivized when you don't. And with a little assistance that helps you show the world who you are, and in doing so, makes everyone sound exactly the same. The irony is that the more sophisticated these apps get, the more they expose a problem that has nothing to do with technology. We are getting lonelier, and we long for connection, and dating is dating, whether online or not. It's confusing, frustrating, entertaining, romantic, and occasionally humiliating, as it's always been. We hope this was helpful, and if you like this format, please let us know in the comments. We'll be waiting for your feedback. Thanks very much, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.